Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to the marketing section of the course where I'm going to be teaching you some general marketing strategies, how and when to launch your course, and my full webinar blueprint. In this first video though, I want to give you guys some general marketing principles and strategies to be aware of that we'll be implementing throughout the rest of this marketing and advertising process of your business. Specifically, I want to talk about the 9 mental triggers of marketing as taught by Jeff Walker in his book, Launch an Internet Millionaire's Secret Formula to Selling Almost Anything Online. Jeff Walker refers to these 9 mental triggers as weapons of mass influence because when applied, they have a huge impact on influencing consumer decisions, and I'll be showing you some examples of how I and others have applied these triggers to give you some good ideas about how you can implement them when marketing your product. The first trigger is authority. People tend to follow those who are in positions of authority. We often look to authority figures to help guide us in our decision making. So one of the most important things you can do when marketing your product is to quickly establish authority so that those you market to will care what you have to say. Having a large following on social media does definitely help you gain more authority, and we'll talk about ways that you can build your following in videos to come, but I promise you, you can still succeed selling your products without having a following. But a more important factor to becoming an authority is by having results that others will want to replicate. We talked about this in the market research video, but results will always be your biggest piece of authority. Having a college or master's degree in a certain field can definitely help boost your authority, but even if you have those credentials, if you don't have results that people want to replicate themselves, it won't matter how much credentials you have, people are not going to want to buy from you. Let me give you some examples of how I've shown authority when marketing full-time filmmaker. My very first Facebook ad I ran started off by me telling people that I've traveled the world, I've worked with big brands, and I've worked alongside Devin Supertramp. So I first showed them my results that they would want to replicate, being able to travel the world and shooting for big brands, and then I name dropped someone that did have a following and did have some authority as someone that I was associated with. So if people didn't know who I was but knew who Devin was, they'd immediately think that I'm authoritative if I've worked with someone that they knew as an authority. This is a tactic that I learned doing door-to-door sales, selling direct TV. If you sold someone direct TV, the best way to sell their neighbors would be to start off by saying, hey, I just got done installing John down the street, your next door neighbor. And if they had any doubts about you being a scam artist, that would quickly go away because they trust John. And if John trusts you, then they can probably trust you as well. This is also an example of community and social proof, which we'll hit on in a second. Now, if you don't know anyone who's authoritative in your field, I'd recommend trying to build some relationships with those kinds of people. An example of this was my collaboration with Rhino Sliders. We did a YouTube video together and it helped both of our brands because anyone who thought Rhino was an authoritative brand but hadn't ever heard a full-time filmmaker would now think that I'm an authority because I've worked with Rhino. And anyone who hadn't ever heard of Rhino but trusted me as an authoritative figure on filmmaking would trust Rhino as a trusted brand because I was working with them. So associating yourself with other authorities and letting people know about that association is a great way to build authority. I also do this by saying in my Facebook ads that I've worked with companies like Hyundai, LG, Canon, all authoritative brands. And if those brands hired me, then I must be an authority in video production. And if you haven't worked with any big name brands, you don't have anyone to name drop, then I'd recommend doing some valuable free work for somebody to build a relationship. And even if you don't get paid by them, at least you'll have the association to say I've worked with them, and you can use that to build authority. Much more importantly though than name dropping, and the biggest way to show authority is to show results. With Full-Time Filmmaker, I'm constantly showing people my video work so people can see what my work looks like and decide if they want to replicate that work. Then in my webinars and on my sales page, I'm constantly sharing testimonials of others who've implemented my training and are achieving similar results. With Course Creator Pro, I tell people in my advertising that I've figured out how to run a 7-figure online business and that I'm in the top 1% in my industry. Those are results that a lot of people want to replicate. So they will look at me as an authority on the subject of making money with online courses. So think about what makes you an authority on your subject or what you can do to become a bigger authority on your subject, and then voice that authority early on in your marketing and advertising so that people will trust what you have to say. And speaking of trust, the next trigger is trust. Building trust is the best way to become influential in someone's life. If you trust someone, you believe them without question. If you want to convince someone to buy something from you, it's much easier if they trust you. As I just mentioned, being an authority is a great way to establish trust right away. But I think one of the best methods that I've used to help gain people's trust is being real and authentic with people. Cut through that marketing fog. Be genuine and open and transparent with people. I've seen so many marketers that send me emails and advertisements using these salesy marketing language and tactics that just don't resonate with me. So I try to avoid those in my marketing as much as possible and just talk to people like normal human beings and not like a business to a consumer. So that's something that I do that's different than what a lot of marketers will tell you to do. Most marketers are going to teach you to use fancy word choices and salesy statements, and we'll talk about some of those. But when I talk, I mostly use my language that I use every day because that comes across as more authentic and real. So even though I'm going to be teaching you some marketing tactics that I use and that work for me, I want to drive home the point that if those tactics aren't genuine and don't feel natural coming from you, then don't use them. Don't force it. Find your own voice that feels real and authentic to you. Another great way to gain trust is through time. Think about it. The people you trust most are those you've known for the longest time. So in order to spend a lot of time with your customer and earn their trust, I believe webinars are the best way to do that because you get to present to them for up to an hour where they just listen to your voice as you add value to their lives and give them more reasons to trust you by hitting on the other 8 triggers throughout your presentation, thus increasing their likelihood of them buying from you. This is especially important if you have a high price product. With Full-Time Filmmaker, I sell my product for $800, and it's going to be hard for someone who stumbles across one of my Facebook ads to click on that and within a few minutes of discovering who I am, pay me $800. Most people are going to take a lot more time than that before making such a large purchase. So by running a webinar, you get that potential customer listening to your voice for up to an hour or more sometimes, sharing all kinds of valuable insights and nuggets of knowledge that help them trust you more and more over time. Trigger number 3 is reciprocity. This is the idea that if someone gives you something of value, you feel obligated to give them something back in return. This is probably one of those tactics I do best, is I give away insane amounts of free content. My Full-Time Filmmaker webinar is jam-packed with valuable training from the paid course. I also put out a lot of free YouTube videos giving away free valuable content, and I'm constantly getting comments in my YouTube videos from people saying that they feel like they owe me money after watching my videos, and that is a perfect example of reciprocity in the working. By giving away free content, I create a reciprocity imbalance. So at the end of my webinar or YouTube video, when I ask them to sign up for my paid course, there is a much higher likelihood that they will reciprocate and buy from me. So don't hold all your golden eggs close to the chest, guys. Be willing to give away some of your best content for free so that people will feel indebted to you and feel a need to return that value. Trigger number 4 is anticipation. Applying the trigger of anticipation allows you to grab someone's attention so that it's all they can think about. Think about awaiting Christmas Day as a kid or the keynote event for a new iPhone. You just can't wait for that date to arrive, and when it finally does arrive, you want whatever you're being sold that much more because you had to wait for it. The main way I apply anticipation is when I'm launching a course, I'll tell people weeks in advance or even months sometimes about the product that I'm working on and give them little sneak peeks of the content and how it's looking. Then when I'm just weeks away from launching, I set a launch date and announce to everyone the exact day and time that the product will be available. Then I send out several emails over the next few days, sending out more sneak peeks and counting down the days until the big launch. This gets everybody super excited and anxious so that by the time you actually open that sales page, they want it even more and have already made decisions long ago that they're going to buy it, assuming the product features live up to all the hype you gave it. Another way that I do this in my webinars is at the beginning, I give an overview of what they can expect in the webinar so that they can see all the great things that are about to come, and they anticipate and look forward to seeing each of those parts in the webinar. This is also a big part to increasing retention on your webinars so that people stick around to the end to hear your pitch, and we'll talk more about this in the webinar videos. Trigger number 5 is likability. This one's pretty straightforward. We enjoy buying things from people that we like, and you become more likable by doing likable things. Like being upbeat, happy, kind, generous, honest, passionate, inspiring, vulnerable, transparent. So in your Facebook ads or your webinars or anytime you appear on camera, focus on being and presenting yourself in a likable manner. Putting out free content is also a big key to becoming likable. For a full hour, you give away free content, you're personable, you're relatable, you're authentic, you interact with your viewers and respond to their questions, which helps them feel more connected and trusting of you, which makes you more likable. Trigger number 6 is events and rituals. People generally love being a part of events. It makes them feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. Apple does this amazingly with their keynote events. I watch those things religiously, and of course they always sell me on one of their products by the end of that event. Again, a webinar is a great way to hold an event that brings people together. They can see hundreds of other people chatting and getting excited about what you're saying. Specifically, live webinars are more powerful events than automated webinars, but even automated webinars, when people see that it isn't live, they still feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves and like they're not the only ones wanting to buy this product. With Full-Time Filmmaker, I also run video competitions or gear giveaways to create opportunities for people to get together and get excited about an event. Trigger number 7 is community. We act in accordance to how we think people in our community act. I started out first by doing it on webinars, creating those communities of people that come together for that event. I also create communities through the private Facebook groups for my paying members. This gets people interacting with each other, forming a strong family bond that makes them more likely to recommend the product to other people. I've also created communities on social media, my YouTube and Instagram following, to interact with me and with each other anytime I post something new. So by creating communities around what you're doing, you create your own community standards. Those standards could include actions like helping spread the word about your course, commenting or liking on your posts, or buying your product. Trigger number 8 is scarcity, and this is probably one of the most powerful triggers to our brains. Where there is less of something, we want it more. You need to understand that most people will put off making a decision if you give them the opportunity to do so, especially when it comes to spending money. So one of the key objectives you have to do in your marketing is to force people to make a decision. If something is scarce, then people need to act quickly before that scarce resource runs out. There has to be a negative consequence if people don't act right away. I used scarcity in my launch for Full-Time Filmmaker and Course Creator Pro by telling people that they could get 50% off if they're one of the first 100 people to join during my webinar. And both times it was very effective in forcing people to make a decision and buy during that time frame. I also use scarcity in my automated webinars by telling people that the first 5 to join the webinar will get 25% off as long as they buy within a 20-minute window. So I also apply urgency as well as scarcity, so I hit on that trigger twice. And we'll talk more in depth about the specific tactics and options for effectively creating scarcity in your launches and webinars in videos to come. But the point is, scarcity pushes people to make decisions, so they buy now instead of later or never. Our last and 9th trigger is social proof. This is the idea that if you see others taking action, you will too. This is why reviews and ratings play such a huge part in our purchasing decisions. We don't want to buy something until we've seen somebody else buy it first. And this is where having a following can really trigger people. When you have a large following on social media, anyone who comes across your profile and sees your following assumes you are liked and authoritative because they see that social proof. Also on my webinars, when people are in the comments saying, "I just purchased, I'm so excited," or on my Facebook ads, they see hundreds of likes and dozens of comments, and then they read some of those comments and see paying members of mine saying, "I 100% back up this product, it's amazing," or they read some testimonials on my sales page. That is social proof, and it's incredibly powerful. So there you have it, guys. Those are the 9 mental triggers and a few examples of how I've applied them in my marketing and advertising. And I'll be bringing those triggers up a lot throughout the rest of this course, so make sure you understand what each of those mean, and we'll be showing you how to apply them to your business to increase your sales. But that's it, guys. If you have any further questions, please let me know.